Okay, the recording started, so we can now go to Affinity Designer. So I'll share my screen, or the desktop to be more precise. Okay, are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Good. Right, I want to show a couple of techniques for making digital paintings. They can be used in many different software. So, but mostly with software that have vectors in them, vectors and pixel editing possibilities both. So, for instance, if you have Photoshop, it works there quite nicely. Illustrator, yes, why not? And as I said, Procreate on iPad, definitely. Okay. So first of all, I'll show you a couple of techniques that you, with just something that is not intended to be anything fancy, so that you see what the technique is. And then we'll try out the techniques for real. So in Affinity Designer, there's the designer persona and the pixel persona. So these are workspaces. Also, there's the third one, export persona. But we'll not talk about that right now. Okay, then, yeah, as you saw, or maybe you saw that I created a document that was A5, and it didn't have a transparent background this time. Also, I did not create an artboard, although I could have. Anyway, so how to combine these two personas, the vector persona and the pixel persona. So let's see. There are a couple of, well, we already have used the pen tool in an earlier lesson, and then we did, I think, try the pencil tool quickly. Then there's the vector brush tool. So I'll show you first how these two work. So the pencil tool is very, very small by default. Like you see, it's only 0.24 points. So if I draw now, but we'll check that it's set on black. Anyway, if I draw now, it will be very thin. So, of course, I could set it to thicker, maybe to 1 point or 1.5, and then draw something else. And now you can see that it's thicker. I could also click here for use fill if I wanted to fill the area immediately with a color while I draw. Let's see. Okay, this time it didn't do it. Let's see, I'll deselect this one and then go back to the pencil and Yes, it does have the use fill. So there should be, yes, now there is an automatic fill. So this might be helpful for you, or it might not. Usually try to make shapes that are closed. Okay, I don't care about these. So let's see. Some basic settings. So then there's the stabilizer, and then there are two ways here of how it will draw things. There's the window mode and the rope mode, and there's the stabilizer, which I personally don't like. So if I click on the stabilizer and start drawing, it will try to make my lines go smoother than what they are. But the good thing is that there are not too many vector points, so the lines are pretty clean in that way. If I click the stabilizer off, it will be more scruffy line. Let's see what happens. Okay, there are slightly more vector points right now. Okay, what else can be done here? So there's the controller, which you can find on most brushes. So if you're using any kind of tablet, then you can put some controls here. So there's the defaults in some brushes. The default is that it's already pressure sensitive. Here, if I click pressure, then it will mean that it can make a thicker line when I press more. With a pencil, it doesn't really matter though. Then if you don't have a tablet, then you can click here on velocity, and the quicker you draw, the fatter the line will be. If I remember correctly, I seldom use the velocity myself. You can find this kind of thing also on Photoshop. Okay, then there's the vector brush tool. Let's see what that does. So it also has the controller. So I'll click here on that it's pressure sensitive. Also, I click on a bigger width. And now I can go to the brushes palette and select one of these brush types. I'll stay by the inks for now. So let's take this brush and let's go for the more settings. Yes, it's here that we can set the size variance. These kinds of brush controls you can also find on Adobe Illustrator and of course in Photoshop. But in Illustrator, there's also this kind of vector brush, where you can change the size variance and also the opacity variance if you want to. So if I click 0 in size variance, then you see that it's very, the thickness is very even at all times. If I put it on 100, then it will vary how much I put pressure on it. Also, I can here say where the head and the tail of the brush begins, and how the brush looks like. Like if I put it on repeat, then well, it should actually show a repeating brush, but here already. But I guess because it's 4,000 pixels long, it doesn't show the repeat. Okay, let's see how this looks like now. As you can see, it drags a little bit. And this is what I don't like with the Affinity Designer. That if you use one of these special brushes, it will be really, really slow. Now this I had to draw it blindly without seeing where it goes. Now I'm drawing very, very slowly. But the nice thing about these vector brushes and the pen tool is that these are vector lines, and I can stretch or squash them as much as I want. And change their appearance. Also, at any point I can change the way that this brush looks like. I can, or how the stroke looks like. You can try out the pencils, for instance. Or I can put some color on this brush stroke. Or even a gradient fill. Or I can go to the appearance window. You remember this probably. And say that I want to have another stroke there. So let's see what kind of stroke that could be. Let's go to dry media and have this, and then change the color so that you can see clearly that, okay, there are now 2 brush strokes together. Also, I can say that, okay, the other brush stroke will show up somehow there. Let's put the lighten. Also, I can change the stack order here so that the orange stroke is anyway at the top or at the bottom. So this gives a different kind of freedom for doing things. Okay, I always like to show these things because I'm fascinated by them, because if you're using traditional media, meaning real pencils, real pastel crayons, and stuff, then you can't do these things. But there are other things that you can do with those that are not so easy maybe to do digitally. Anyway, let's go see how to combine the pixel persona with the vector persona. So I'll use just the ordinary pencil tool with an ordinary fill. Okay, now let's have a small shouting competition. What do you want me to draw? Something simple.
Ice cream.
Ice cream? Did you say ice cream?
Yes.
Okay, let's draw ice cream. Okay. I'll draw an ice cream stick. And okay, for some reason the stroke, it's now remembering that it wants to be green, so I'll change it to black for now. Okay, and let's have another one, maybe using the stabilizer. And now it's again remembering my what I previously wanted. Okay, let's take the fill away. Okay, let's start it from here. So now I will make these already to things that I want to fill, like areas that I want to fill. There we go. This. Okay, and I will use the node tool to put this a little bit in a better position here. Okay, I think that's good enough for this purpose. So what I want to do is I want to fill this with a with some sort of pixel fill. So how to do that? It's actually easy. Well, it's easy, but you have to know a couple of tricks here. So for instance, you'll have to have this area selected. And then you go to the pixel persona and select paintbrush tool there. So now we are in pixel world. And another thing that I need to select here is this little button here. There's this insert inside selection. There's also insert at the top of the layer, insert behind the selection. So this I want to have inside the selection. And what kind of ice cream would it be? Maybe chocolate. So I'll select a brush that I like. Let's try out watercolors. There are many nice brushes here. I'll take this one. Large, dense watercolor. And as you can see, it has a lot of different settings, more than the other brush had, the ink brush, that you can set. There's also dynamics, that it jitter settings and such. And then there's the texture that you can change. There's even sub brushes. Okay, there are none here this time. But anyway, if you want to play with these and create your own brushes, these are the places where you find them. And okay, so back to the chocolate filling, or actually not filling, but well, anyway. So everything should be set, and the brush is big enough. I don't want to be. And now the assistant appears and says that it's added a new raster layer, and that's precisely what I wanted. I wanted to have a new raster layer. So basically, it's now using the curve that it did as a mask for the raster layer. So there are other ways of doing this, but this is like the handiest that I found. So just now it's also having these wet edges, and I could change the brush from what it was into multiply. Also maybe change the opacity a little bit. Also force the pressure to control size. Sometimes these brushes already have the pressure controls. Sometimes they don't, but now I want to force it. Okay, that's a little bit too dark already, maybe. Okay, so I pressed Command Z to get rid of those brush strokes that I didn't want. But anyway, right now, because this is a pixel area, once the software has forgotten the undo levels, you can't go back and change it unless you paint those pixels. So it's not like the vector brushes where you can manipulate everything at any point. Okay, so let's take the next curve, which would be this one. And oh, by the way, I want to save that brown into my swatch palette. There we go. And now when I go again here, I have to remind the program that yes, I want to insert this inside the selection. So I need to be a little bit analytical in doing this. Set this out. So I'll change the mode back to normal, and I'll change the color to something a little bit warmer maybe. And then let's take the bottom, which would be, I guess, made of lighter ice cream. So I'll see if I have a ready-made. Okay, this might work. It could be a little bit darker though. Let's take the HSL sliders. Yeah, I think that could work. By the way, the lines still are existing, like, and I want to get rid of them at some point. So I will show that too. And let's make it brighter. And as you can see, because the everything is controlled by the area that I drew earlier, I don't need to think about staying inside or out the lines, because that happens automatically. Very handy too for somebody as messy in drawing as I am. Okay, and there's the ice cream stick. So draw inside. And then let's see which color that would be. Do I have nice colors here? Okay, maybe this reddish would be good. Oh, and I mistakenly took the selection brush tool. Okay, that's funny. Anyway, here we go. I can go to any of these areas at any time and manipulate them, because they are all here in the layers palette. So they have not gone anywhere. Also, if I want one area to be over the other one, then that's also possible from here. Okay. And then this one, this curve. So paint inside, change the color a little bit. I think it would work better if the light came from here. So I'll change this area to a darker shade, and also here, this one. So what I need is to change here to multiply. Oh yes, that works better. And then I click this area directly and paint it. Now I don't need to click here on insert inside because the pixel layer already exists. Yeah, I think that works better. I'm still bothered by the outlines here, so I will correct that now. Go to, well, there are actually different ways of handling this. I could go to stroke, for instance, and click that there's no line style at all. Or I could go to the appearance and click the stroke off. That works too, as you can see. What bothers me a little bit about Affinity Designer is that you can't do this for many areas at once. You have to go to the strokes one by one.
Is it possible in Illustrator?
Yes, it is. And I'm kind of used to that. Okay, so here the fill is still a little bit, transparent, as you can see, so I have to make it more. I have to put there some more power. So right now I have used the same brush all the time, but of course I could have changed it to something else. Okay, it's still a multiply, so I'll change it to normal. And maybe have a little bit more yellowish tone there. So it's usually good to have, when you're painting, that your the paint area that you paint doesn't have the same only one color, but that it's consisting of several layers of color that you apply in different quantities. Like right now the opacity is 77, so it doesn't affect all of this at once. But I think I'll make the width wider. I can go to thousands of pixels if I want to, but right now that's not what I need. Yeah, now it starts looking more chocolate-like. Okay, so this was the first technique that I wanted to show you. So yeah, it's kind of fun also to use. And the great thing about it that I can go at any time to the designer persona and then move these curves wherever I want. Like for instance, right now I'm not quite happy where this is. Or I could just select both of these and move them a little bit so that they are placed a little bit better. Also, I can do this with the arrow keys, which I'm right now doing, which you don't see. So any of these shapes are still editable. For instance, here there's this weird corner that I should probably correct. And also here's one weird corner. Okay, any questions about this technique? Okay, silence. So perhaps not. This urge to keep on tweaking. Anyway, another technique that I wanted to show you was, let's see, which one was it? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, here was, by the way, an image that's still under construction, but yeah, maybe we'll see this next. So here, if I was kind of in a hurry and I wanted to use this image of the hair directly. So I went to the internet and searched for a couple of hair photos. So this is a hare, not a rabbit. Like in Finnish, it's called a rusakko, or I think it was a peltojänis. Anyway, rabbits are the small ones that we have them in the Helsinki area, I think. Anyway, there are lots of hares these days in Tampere. Perhaps you have seen them. So I wanted to make an illustration of a hare. So I imported the image here and resized it. It doesn't really matter what resolution it has for these purposes. I've talked so much about resolution and now I'm saying that it doesn't matter, but for this, it doesn't really. So you can see that I've changed the opacity of the image to 40. I can also put it back, but the idea of having a low opacity is that I will see the important things, and also I can see better what I'm drawing. So there are basically two possibilities when you're using reference images. I would recommend not to do direct tracing of the image, but just use it as a reference. Also, maybe you could sketch some of it on paper and then import it here into the digital form. Or you can do your sketch here. so that you just put the image somewhere where you can see it and then give yourself an area where you can sketch. This also works fine if you're using artboards, then you can put your reference image to another artboard. But this time it's over here. I'll first test the line and it works. And now I will create another layer for my drawing, another vector layer like this. And not many people are able to create these like very clean areas right away like this. I'm usually not one of those. So I'm able to do it, but I don't like it. I would first make a sketch and then use that sketch as my reference. So basically I would do first a very quick sketch of the big areas, like where I want the stuff to go. Let's first tell the pen tool that I do not want to have any fill on, but I do want to have a stroke. Okay, now it should do my bidding. So the big areas first. Like where are the ears, for instance? Where's the head? Where's the body? I do know the I approximately know the anatomy of a hair, so that also helps with the drawing. So I need to check how close together the legs are so that the proportions of the image will be okay. By the way, this hair seems to have a very long tail. I think it's rabbits that have the small tails. Because what I said earlier about the right brain, left brain thing about the language areas not being in together with the drawing areas. That's why there are these pauses in my speech, or more pauses than usual. I do have a bit of a stutter generally when I speak. You might have noticed that, but that doesn't keep me from speaking. I stutter and then I let other people suffer about it. And the eyes should be in a straight corner compared to the nose. snout or whatever it's called. In Finnish, you say this area of hair is the turpa, which reminds of horses. And I think there is a resemblance with the horse skull in the structure of a hare skull. It's a nice angle to the ear. So this way, I'm also making myself familiar with what I'm drawing, so that I know what is in each area and what the shape is, like in 3D wise, so that I know what I'm drawing. So that's one purpose of the sketching process. So from this image, I could now or I could take this image now as my basic layer and create a new layer. Again, putting the opacity of this smaller. Also, I want to lock this layer. I might use the sketch later on also. But now what I would do here next would be making the clean lines, using this as the reference, and also looking at this. Starting from the ears. And when you're doing this, when you're doing actual drawing, then you might notice that something inside you tries to tell you that no, stop this is stupid, don't do, why are you making such a fuss about these shapes that don't mean anything. That's your language half talking, and your language half would really like to say what a hair looks like. And now it's lagging again, as you can see. It's really annoying. Your language half would like to say that, okay, a hair has 2 ears and a head, and it has eyes somewhere. Also, maybe this is what it should look like. Then it has a body, big legs. So this is a hair. But that's not what's really here in the picture. Like, this is a symbolic depiction of the parts of the hair. And that's what the left side of the brain likes to make symbols. And sometimes, and very often, that's fine. We have got written language and language in general because of symbols. So in the whole picture, symbols are not bad at all. But if you're doing some real drawing, then your symbolic brain half might get in the way sometimes. So there's a reason why I'm doing this slowly. It's because then the symbolic brain stops nagging and lets the right brain half look at the actual areas, what they are like, and think about the what is connected to where. And now I did a mistake because I was listening too much to myself speaking. There's also something called perspective happening here, that the legs that are over here, they look slightly smaller, and such things. So the right side of the brain, or that's how the theory goes, is not less analytical than the left side, that is the language side, but the way it analyzes things is different. It's more spatial than symbolic. Okay, and when I'm done, okay, it's still doing the line. Oh, I see, I changed the brush, was mistakenly the vector brush tool and not the pencil. That's why it took so long to draw. Anyway, I'll get rid of these outlines next. And also I need to put the curves in their right positions. So I could, of course, be now very symbolically analytical and name all these parts, so it would be easier for me to put them in their places. Like this curve is the body. And lots of the other curves need to be behind the body. Like this one, for instance. Okay, and I need to be careful that it doesn't go into the other layer as a mask layer. Okay, and this is the head. And I guess the ears will go under the head, and that's how they are already. So now the next step would be to take the stroke away from everywhere. Of course, the one way of doing this would have been to just trace the hair directly from the drawing. Well, not from the drawing, from the photo, I mean. But then that would have left out the analytical part of the sketching and thinking which part is which and where they should be. And I can see now that my analysis has been hampered by me speaking all the time, because the leg here is in the clearly the wrong position, like it can't anatomically be here. Anyway, so let's still go with this. So now what I want to do is, now that I have taken away all the outlines that I drew to the fill layers, I can start filling up them like I did earlier with the ice cream. But now I start with the like big things first, and then go to the details later. Okay, let's take watercolors. Okay, maybe this will serve my purpose. I can actually use the ice cream colors for the hair as well. That's a stroke of luck. Just make them a little bit warmer. So there are two ways of painting. Oh, and I'm in the wrong persona, so I'm going to the pixel persona. Okay, check that my watercolor is still there. Yeah, I was talking about that there are two ways of painting. Well, one is that you paint with light, that you first paint the bright areas, or actually you first paint the dark areas and then you add the light areas, seeing where the light comes from. Right now there's a little bit of light and shadow areas here, and if I was a real colorist, a real painter, I would probably do it like that, so that I wouldn't. Then there's another way of doing it. You first don't care about the color at all, but you paint first a grayscale image. And then later on you start adding the color into it, for instance, by adjustment layers or other kinds of, or maybe making straight on curves and stuff, or painting the color on a separate layer, but letting the black and white layers shine through. So that's another way of looking at painting, that you first get your tones right and then go into color. And then there's painting in color straight on. But both of these ways are strongly in favor that you first, oh, I forgot to have the inside selection. And it's still not working. What is it? Okay, now it should work. Yes. Yeah, I was saying that in both of these ways, you first paint the big areas and then you go into the details. Just like you go when you are drawing, you start with the big shapes and then you go to the details. So don't start with the details of the eye and then continue drawing from there, or painting, and then you notice that your what you're doing is not fitting on the area that you have there. So I'm now giving these like this very general tone that will be the will serve me. Okay, there we go. Paint inside. And often it helps if you if you're using glasses, for instance, then take your glasses off and see where the big areas of light and shade are, or the big areas of color. Or then if you don't use glasses, then put your eyes partly shut. Squint, that was the word. That's the word. Squint your eyes. Siristää silmiä in Finnish. Again, I'm not caring about any details yet. I'm just interested in putting the big colors and big areas of in here first. So usually while painting, it's best to go take the, like, well, it's not best, but it's one way of doing it, to take the like middle areas first, then look where the shadows are, and then put the light areas after that, and then go for the details. So drawing and painting are not particularly mysterious after you know these basics. And even if you're doing something like maybe that might be seen as cute in some ways, like some might think that hairs are cute or pretty. It's usually not a good idea to think that, okay, I'll try to draw something that is pretty, because it usually goes wrong then. So just try to do something that works well, not something that is necessarily pretty, but works in that area. Okay, I could of course continue painting this one here until 12 o'clock, but I think, well, I do want to show you other things too. That's one thing. As much as I like doing this, I think we should move on. Do you have any questions right now?
I was just wondering, how different is Krita compared to Affinity Designer and the painting here?
Krita is more, much more based on pixels, but as far as I know, it also has the like vector functions, or that you can have well areas. I mean, that you can lasso an area and then paint inside it, or have masks. So also in Photoshop, you can do this also by using masks. So certainly it's a little bit different, as all of these are a bit different, but not that much, I'd say.
Okay.
You can find the same basic techniques in each of these programs. Right now I want to find a hairy brush here for the Okay, this might do the trick. Yeah, it's certainly hairier than the other one. Also, all painting programs have different blend modes for the brushes. At least the ones that I have used mostly have these. Okay, let's take a look at another kind of technique, and that's drawing by mirroring. So I'll create a new image for that. There we go. So now the mirroring brushes are not there in the Affinity Designer, well, in the designer persona, in the vector persona, but you'll have to go straight to the pixel persona to find those mirroring options. And I'll click straight here to the brush. And now there's these buttons, Symmetry and Mirror. By the way, I'll change my brush to something something smaller, maybe inks, yes. Or maybe pencils, yes, let's try out pencils this time. Okay, I also changed the flow to 100 so it doesn't stop halfway. Okay, so symmetry is an axis basically here. If I click on symmetry, then I get one axis by default, which is in like this way. And if I start drawing, then this kind of thing will happen, which is not maybe that interesting. I can also move the axis. If I click on Shift, it will move in these increments, and I want to let it stay here. Also, I can put several symmetry axes if I like to have like a maybe a flower or some mandala like thing. This kind of stuff. Also, the symmetry would work well if I wanted to make a pattern to use in some other program. Anyway, I'm not looking now to make this kind of symmetry, but I want to make a face with the mirror function. So one symmetry axis is enough for me. And I'll click here on the mirror also. So now it should be acting better. Yes. Okay, but this is not yet a face. There were other things I wanted to show you also with this technique. Is not just about mirroring. Other ways of painting. But let's make the face first. Okay. Move the axis to move it back. Okay, my eraser is huge. I need to put it smaller. And the axis is moving again. This is what I don't like here, but I can, of course, keep the symmetry. Okay, I think my brush is for the eraser is bad. So let's see if this works better. Yes, it does. I wasn't happy with the chin. Mm. Yep, this is better. And then maybe some hair. Actually, that doesn't work very well. I think for the hair, I'll take the mirroring and symmetry away, or just keep him as a baldy. He might have a tuft of hair here. Okay. Then clean it up a little bit with the eraser. So this is one technique you can also use when you're taking your like hand-drawn images into the digital world, that you clean up your original image or you trace it. That's the other way of doing it. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to do here was to make several layers for the colors. Let's give him or her a shirt. To make him more manly, to give him a little bit more shoulders. So anyway, when you're using the symmetry axis, it's advisable to break the symmetry at some point to not make your character look too robot-like. So now I have the like basic outline layer that I'll use, and where I want to make also some fillings, but the fills I will do with the with selecting the areas here. For instance, here I have the selection brush, which is very handy. I'll select the areas of his face and neck for the filling of his well, face area, and I'll include the ears there too, and the neck. Now here it's important that there are distinctions, that there are no gaps between the neck area, for instance, and the background. If there were gaps, then this would be very much less easy to do. Okay, and I think I'll take these areas in the middle as well, and the eyebrows too. Okay, here we go. So I think I'm happy enough with this area. So now I will create a new pixel layer. Yeah, add pixel layer. And now the fill that I'm doing here will only affect the new layer that I created. So let's see, I don't need to put anything, put any inside selection stuff here. So let's go have a big brush. Okay, I'm happy with the watercolors so far. So I'll take this one and make it bigger. We'll have the big areas first and then go to the smaller ones, and good. And it's black. So let's have something that could work as a base of a skin color. If you have done classical painting, then you might have heard that the first layer of skin color should also always be green. So let's do it in the classical way now.
Why the first layer need to be green?
So that the greenness will then come through a little bit from the background or from the background of the. It's something that the Dutch masters found out in the 17th century, that when you paint the first background layer of skin in a greenish tone, then it will bring all other tones out in a better way. So I'm not quite, well, the Impressionists in the 19th century, they did not approve of this, and they said that it's rubbish. They don't want to do things that way. They don't want to have green-faced people. But yeah. I just wanted to tell you, like, historical stuff at some point. Okay, and now you have probably noticed that the background layer is not showing up. So we can change that really easily to either by doing this, if it's well, not the ideal solution. The ideal solution would of course be to duplicate this layer and bring it up here. Also, I could use multiply over here if I wanted to. Also, it's now, well, the outline is black, so I'm thinking of changing that at some point to something else to make it more painterly, or maybe get rid of the outline completely. So let's see if it looks better without the greenness. Well, it might be, but this is still the beginning, so we could just create another layer again and start painting the shadow areas here. So now the question is what color the shadow areas should have. Should they be, well, there's one school that says that the shadow area should be the skin tone that a little bit just darker. Maybe it's too small. Then there's another school that says that you should have shadow areas that are in the color, whatever you need. So I think I'll make the shadow area bluish in tone to go with the colorist view of things. And it should be, it's big in opacity, so I'll change the opacity. Oops. Oh, now going to preferences. Oops. Anyway, I'll change the opacity here too. Or maybe it's just too blue. Neutral tone. Change the brush as well. Yeah, it's better. Oops. And now you can see that because I have several images here on top of each other and several layers, it's starting to lag. So I should probably do this on one layer only. I could also name these layers by what they actually have there. We're going to have something reddish. Maybe the lag here is getting intolerable right now. Using to work with me. So this way I could now continue working in this image. So if I go back to the original pixel drawing, I could now have select another area here and then again make another another layer for the painting over there. And see to it that there is enough light and shadow areas and enough contrast between them. And in Photoshop, there is the possibility of painting just the pixels that are in on the layer, so that for instance, now, if I want to go back to one of these face layers and change them or paint on them. Well, by the way, changing the opacity on the green layer to see if it really works, if the Dutch masters were right. And anyway, I should have a couple more layers or painting here in this basic skin color layer to make it look more natural. Anyway, how to paint here so that only the pixels that have been painted are affected, seeing that I am not using any mask layers right now. Because if I now go here, then it's just painting over it like this, and that's not what I want. What I do want is to select all the pixels here, and I'll do it by command clicking this layer like this. So on the Windows PC, it's control click, and with a Mac, it's command clicking the layer image. And then now if I change the skin tone a little bit, paint over it, and it should go only inside. Yes, and that's for this. So another way of doing this would have been to just copy this layer or duplicate it, and then, as you can see, it's becoming more saturated already. So I could try out the different blend options between the layers. See what looks interesting and what doesn't. Okay, do you have questions at this point?
How do artists take their hand-drawn images to computer? Do they just scan them with a good scanner?
Well, what I do is of course, the ideal way is to have a flatbed scanner. Then the other way of doing it is just take pictures with your mobile phone, providing that the mobile phone is, or that it has a good enough camera. So, and then you clean it up. You go to something like Adobe Photoshop or Affinity Photo, and you change the values there, the curves, so that that you get to select only the lines, or you just use the sketch as a reference point and then trace it by drawing over it, which is what people what illustrators usually do, that they make a sketch and then they make the finished drawing over it. So in this case, you just do it with a computer. That's why the Wacom tablets and other tablets are so popular with illustrators and artists, that they really let you draw. The computer mouse doesn't really let you draw, or a control pad on a laptop. Of course, you can, if you have a painting that is made with a traditional media, you can take a picture of it. I would recommend to see to it that the lighting conditions are ideal, or then use a flatbed scanner. And then, of course, change the resolution to what it should be, like what we have talked. And then continue from there.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions before we go to the day tasks? This, by the way, something I did yesterday where I didn't use dark outline, but a lighter outline. But the technique was basically the same as here. And here I have had time to look at the light areas and put them into the picture. So first doing the dark areas and then the light ones. Well, first the middle areas, then the dark ones, then the light ones, and then the details. I didn't go into the details with this yet. And here I used shadows that had clear colors. And a couple of different kinds of brushes. Okay, so maybe we go into the day tasks then. Oh, by the way, this was something I wanted to show you. Maybe you know mapcrunch.com already, but so of course you know Google Street View. Well, mapcrunch.com is a place where you can find random Google Street Views, and also the galleries are really interesting. So if you want to make a landscape image and you need some references, so you can just look here that, okay, I want to have images that are from Bhutan. And I don't want urban ones, but I want all the Bhutan images. Okay, then let's click off the options and go. And now it should have only Bhutan. Okay, somebody, well, I didn't want to see that guy. Okay, let's go somewhere else where we don't see that guy. Because, well, I've been to virtual tours in Bhutan through MapCrunch earlier, and I've noticed that Bhutan has very dramatic landscapes. That's why I took you here. Most of the times in Google Street View, people are not posing. Well, that guy was, but usually if you have people, they are mostly like very natural poses. So it's also an interesting place to find people for drawing, for references. Well, you can see how pretty it is in Bhutan. They are claiming that they have very happy people there. At least their president is claiming that. Okay, more time. Something that I wanted to point out, by the way, there was a reason why I took these landscape shots, because we don't have time to do landscapes, but of course you might be interested in doing landscapes digitally. So again, here with the landscape, if you would paint this, then the easiest way would be first to block out the big shapes and see what kind of color tones each of them has. And typically, when you go further away, the atmosphere of the Earth starts to show, so that the further away you go, the further you look, actually, then the bluer things start to appear. Also, there's often mist in the air, which makes things even bluer and takes away the tones from them. And also, you obviously don't see so many details the further away you go. So this area of the mountains is quite blue, and also this is bluish, much more bluish than the foreground. Although they are approximately the same kinds of trees, both here and there in the far distance. And the same happens with the like sky. It also changes its color into a more washed out bluish tone the further away you look, and the more atmosphere there's between you and the place that you're looking at. And again, squinting your eyes will help to find out which tones are brighter and which are more, which are darker. For instance, when I'm squinting, I can see that the difference in tone between this sky area and this for a mountain area is quite distinct. And it's even more distinct over here. Although this is the bottom half, the darker half of the cloud. It started raining outside in the real world, and not in the Bhutan virtual tour. Okay. So that was just something I wanted to say about landscapes and where to find free references very quickly. So I'll copy this to the course area. Okay, first of all, I'll add MapCrunch over there. There we go. All of the topics of this course, each of them could be like expanded to a longer course. For instance, in the spring, I had this course that was just concentrating on 3D modeling on Blender. And of course, we have at TAMK Interactive Media, there's the fine art side where there are the courses for drawing and painting, and there are a course for sketchbook drawing. Like you get a sketchbook and then you have to fill it with something that makes sense somehow. Okay, for me. Task 5th June. Zoom. I was thinking about what this illustration could be, and I was thinking of different kinds of topics that would make sense to you. Let's have this one. Create an illustration of a bird in flight. Where now my phone's ringing. Okay, I need to go see who's. Right, let's continue with where some of the details are clearly visible. I tried to write this ambiguously enough so that there is enough freedom for you to interpret this how you see fit. You can add a background to the bird if you want to, if you have time, or it could be maybe made like a scientific or schoolbook illustration of the bird where you can see it from different angles. So it's up to you. So maybe a schoolbook illustration would be a good thing to keep in mind. that you can see that, okay, it's a peacock in flight, or maybe an owl in flight, or maybe a sparrow in flight. And of course, to see what that bird in flight looks like, you'll have to look for reference images. Use reference photos for your work. And please don't use other illustrations. Like a couple of years ago, I had this character design course. Or was it there? Yeah, anyway, the students were supposed to make an illustration of Andersen's, of a tale by H.D. Andersen. Many of them, they chose The Little Mermaid, and then some students, well, they were exchange students, they took the Disney Ariel and made a copy of that. So, and then when I said that, okay, this is not your original illustration, they were very astonished to hear that that was not okay, to take somebody else's design and just copy it. So now what I want to see is your design, not how well you can copy somebody else's drawing. And export your illustration as a JPEG. Okay, does this sound doable to you, or fun, or challenging enough?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because of course I try to think of day tasks that are interesting. Okay, I'll stop screen sharing, and also I'll stop the video now.